So we've got a session about film editing today, and we have three fantastic editors, Steve and Rupert and Sam, who've very kindly come to talk about their work. They're going to show a load of clips of work they've done right from the early days through to some recent stuff, and talk about how you make films. And there are a couple of things I wanted to say about editing, especially now that I think is changing and makes it even more important than it ever used to be, really. I think when I started out, the craft of making a film was slightly different in that you used to go out with a cameraman and you'd shoot on film and you'd plan all of that, and that person would tell you your film was shit and you were wrong, and then you'd carry on, and then you get to the edit, and then the editor would tell you were shit and it was wrong. But there was much more structure about how a film was made generally. And now I think you get to a situation, and I've done it, where you go out and film and you're completely sort of embedded with a person and a story, and you're shooting away on DV, and you've got tons and tons of rushes. And it's very hard to stand back and sort of think about what your film's about and what the story of the film is, how you get 1 hour out of all these rushes that you've got. But the edit isn't any longer. There is an extra time to watch all this footage. There is an extra time to sort of make decisions. And so at that point when, as a director, you come into the cutting room and you sit down with the editor and start talking about what the film's about, what's the best story, what are the best characters, it's even more pressured than it ever has been, really, and an even more important job for the editors to try and take a guess or get a handle on what goes through. So, hopefully it's more relevant than ever to talk about the art of documentary film editing, because I think there's more pressure on the editors to help find the story and to bring their craft to make a film out of the rushes than there ever was. There's another reason we wanted to do this session, which is that all of these guys are very committed to training up and finding new editors, and the days of having assistants are sort of gone, but I work for The Garden, and we're about to work with Rupert and Sam on a scheme that Rupert's been pushing for ages, actually, about working with assistants. So we're going to work a scheme with Rupert and Sam and another editor. We're all going to work with 2 assistants, one more senior, one more junior. We'll talk about it a bit at the end, and if anyone's interested, we can give you details. But that seems to be a decent place to start, actually, with Rupert talking about that scheme and why he's been pioneering it, and I think that goes into a clip from when he first got a break as an editor as well, actually.
Yeah, it's a funny thing talking about editing. Actually, usually you're sort of in a contained box, and so the idea about being here in front of all you is slightly scary. I know directors come in with their rushes, and they probably must feel like this, sort of slightly terrified, as editors sit down and observe everything you've gone out and filmed and woken up 5 o'clock in the morning for, and we've all gone, no, we didn't want that. That's rubbish. No, that didn't work. So I kind of get it. Okay, I get it now. So in terms of the assistant scheme, which I've been trying to get off the ground for quite some time, I was an assistant, but I wasn't paid to be an assistant, and so I very fortunately got to sit in with some good editors, but thankfully my dad managed to fund me for about 6 months, and I then made myself invaluable to a production company, and they started paying me. But I got amazing experience, and I've been contacted in the last few years by a number of young would-be editors about how they get on, how they give it a try, and it's almost impossible because no one will give them a shot. And as John said, these days the pressures on production companies and broadcasters and directors to produce something that's sort of a standard just gets greater and greater. And so the idea of creating a space where young people can come and try out is really important. It's up to us really to create that space, so that's what we're doing. And unfortunately, thanks to the Garden and John and Channel 4, we're first of all going to try and do it with a great big series A&E, which is brilliant. We both Sam and I did the first series of A&E, and it's a great place, I think, for assistant editors to work on because of being a rig show, you can do lots of stuff with storytelling. But anyway, we'll talk more about that later. My first clip is actually a bit embarrassing because it's about a decade old, and it was something that I did. They gave me keys to a 6-part series on BBC Three in the days when BBC Three sort of said, yeah, whatever you like. They don't quite do that anymore. And so we were sort of encouraged to be expressive and a bit experimental. The series is called Wedding Stories, and it was 6 1-hours. And yeah, so we were kind of encouraged to do what we like, and this is kind of, with all the freedom that I was given, one of the small sequences that I cut for that series. I think is it clip 1, Wedding Stories?
Would you like any biscuits or cake?
No,
or something like
we
that?
actually discussed, I wonder what we'd get when we arrived. Isn't it funny how you say, well, I said, oh, I bet, David said, we'll probably have digestives. I said, no, I would imagine is a full tea person with scones. That's what...
You were hoping for scones. I can't offer you scones.
Because we're having this discussion, do we say scones or scones?
All right.
We want to thank you very, very, very much indeed for spending the time, and we appreciate it so much, and it is so important to us. The whole day is very important, but the ceremony is the most important part of that day to us.
And the whole thing's been sort of put together in a
Extremely quick. Shall I give a bit of background to ourselves? So at least you know. We've been together for 3 years in November, and just had a hot tub delivered 5 weeks ago. Both of us are Christians, and I'm more of a practicing Christian. I try to go to church virtually week, but David goes to church when he can as well.
Now, the service is beginning at 11.
That's right, yes.
Tell me about just the practicalities in terms of guests will be arriving.
There is
10,
probably
30
about 90 guests, 85 guests actually at the ceremony. We are planning to be arriving by helicopter.
Right, okay. What time are you arriving?
At 10:45.
Okay. So when you actually arrive, you are going to come in together.
Yeah. Yes.
With anybody accompanying you?
No, only Danny.
Just Danny.
Our dog.
Okay.
Danny will be walking behind us.
He'll be behind.
Yes.
He follows behind.
Yes, he does. Because he's a bit lazy, you have to drag him. Because if he doesn't want to walk anywhere, he just lies down.
And he'll have the rings around his neck in a pouch, so he's going to...
I was going to ask you, has Danny got an outfit?
Yes, he's got lots of outfits. He wears cravats, bow ties, all sorts of things, and he goes to all the parties. Pardon? Bandanas, all sorts of things. He goes to black tie dinners and everything with us, doesn't he? With a little black tie and everything. And Mardi Gras parties with feathers. But yes, he'll be having flowers, and he'll be carrying the rings. Danny will be.
Then I am to ask the one who bears the rings to bring them forward.
Yes. But you'll say it to us, won't you?
So, where is Danny?
I will hold Danny.
The band gets together.
Because Danny is just a baby, he'll just lie there in my arms while David gets the rings.
Okay.
Right.
Now, does that give you a feel for what we're hopefully sharing together?
Yes. Yeah. Incredible depth. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much indeed.
That's right.
God bless you.
Really
Thank
nice
you.
Thank you very much. We'll see you Monday.
Okay. God bless
Yes.
you.
Thank
For
you.
the last few days.
Yes.
I believe.
So there you go. That was marvellous, wasn't it? Yeah, I mean, so that's what happens when you get keys to the entire CD collection and complete freedom to do what you like with it. Good, bad, or indifferent. But it was great because that particular series, we were encouraged to do whatever we wanted, and it was really nice editorially to be able to have those things and make those mistakes, but sort of have the freedom to do that. And it was great back in those days on BBC Three that you could actually do those sorts of things. And it was really exciting. I certainly learned a lot of it. I learned a lot from doing it. I watched most of the series through my fingers, to be fair. But I did learn a lot from it. And it was a very good experience for me, I think.
With that question, how do you get the tone right with something like that? I think it's a big question for editors when you get material in, because it's quite close to taking the piss. They've got a dog in lots of outfits and stuff, but on the other hand, you want it to be affectionate and they're going to get married in a sweet film. How do you do that?
With that, I think because it's a wedding, right? Everyone loves a wedding, but you kind of... The decision we made was that we weren't going to be sort of schmaltzy about it. We were going to have a bit of an attitude to it, because otherwise it'd just be a bit boring. And they were completely up for that, you know, and so we could push it with them. And I think all of the contributors in there in the series, there was only one complaint, I think, and you know, we even called one contributor a bastard in commentary, which is but he didn't complain. He was completely fine with it. The only complaint we got was from one guy who was a 36-year-old marrying an 18-year-old, which was all a bit dodgy, and he talked about the fact he was completely in total debt, had no idea how to pay his way out of it. It was a nightmare, and he complained that he wasn't in it enough. That was it. That was it. You know, they loved it. I think because we sort of did it completely, we just went fully down that road, and we completely committed to it, doing it in that way. And I think it was a success because of that, because it's, you know, good, bad, and different, whether you like it or not. It was what it was, and there was a consistency to the tone throughout the whole series. So.
And how easy was it to persuade? You said that you went back to do the dog sequence.
Yeah.
How easy was it to persuade the director that's? Or were they really up for it? Or?
Yeah, I think there was I mean, the actual idea for going back and redressing the dog came from me, because I just thought it was such a nonsense. I just couldn't believe they had all these outfits. I thought, it's just such a mistake not to see it. You know, it'd be nice to sort of see that. And so we talked about going back, and they you know, she contacted Lord Lee, his name is. It's a bought title. And he was like, yeah, no, absolutely, you know, and so it was, it's a very open and collaborative experience, all of that, which was nice. The same, you know, I think, you know, the same goes for the rest of the series, and there were other moments when ideas came from the cutting room, but, you know, it's, it was a goodie. But I mean, it was nice to be able to flex your muscles editorially and try some different stuff, good, better, and different. There were massive mistakes in it, though, that I would I just thought, given the chance of review, I mean, we did them in 5 weeks, each film in 5 weeks, and there was masses of material. I mean, a mass of material.
What were the biggest mistakes you made?
Oh, I did some stuff with some weird jump cut thing. I used some really atrocious music, you know. But, you know, it was fine. It was in keeping with the thing. But, you know, it's sort of a personal taste thing. It makes you cringe. You know, it's weird watching stuff back as well. I mean, what's great about editing is that sometimes you'll catch something you've done many years later. I mean, certainly I've done quite a bit for the BBC. I know you have as well, Steve, and you, Sam. Is that you watch stuff, if you're lucky, you catch it on like UK TV or something, and you'll sit there and think, that wasn't that bad. And that's a kind of, you know, I feel relieved when I sort of watch it and go, that was all right, actually, that was all right. But at the time, you get so sort of snowblind with the process that you can't sort of see that. And other stuff you do go, oh my God, what was I thinking? You know, but, you know, that's part of the process.
Do you want to go? You next.
Yes. Following on from what Rupert's just been saying, I think it is interesting that even if you've edited a film yourself, you can look at it sort of a year later and think, well, there's obviously no other way of cutting that film. It could only be that way. And you sometimes forget, even yourself, the number of stages that film has gone through in the cutting room and completely been reworked and reworked and reworked until it falls into place and becomes the film that everyone remembers, hopefully. And I wanted to talk about a film that I did called To Courtney with Love, which was about a young girl called Becky who was pregnant and had a baby at 13 years old, was diagnosed with bone cancer at the age of 14 and died at the age of 15. And, you know, slightly different from Wedding Stories, it's not the same kind of tone of film at all. But, you know, and I'm all for tears and pulling all the emotion out that you can, but this had the potential to be unremitting. And, in fact, the first cut that we did, which concentrated on the girl's mother, because the majority of filming had been done with the girl's mother, and, in fact, half the filming, at least, had been done in the day and the night before she died. And we all got together and watched the first cut, and it was completely unremittingly sad and unwatchable, to be honest. So we knew we had to come up with a different way of doing this. And it's at that stage that we came up with the idea that we would make the film, and that's why it's called To Courtney with Love, as a sort of something for the daughter, who was at that stage about 18 months, 2 years old. And I had noticed in the rushes, one of my favourite parts of the rushes was the video diaries that the director had given a camera to the girl's sister. And so came up with the idea of structuring the entire film around the video diaries and making it a much more personal, this is our tribute to Becky for her daughter in the future. And after you've seen it, I think we'll show the clip and then I'll talk a bit about how we tried to make that happen. So if we could show the clip, please.
It's 11:10. I just woke up, feeling a bit tired, and I thought I'd start speaking to you about my sister. You see, she went for a CT scan yesterday. It was mad, proper mad. She was like, you could see all the bones on the machine and that when she was getting a scan done. Then we come back. We'll get the results back next week if the tumours have spread any more. So I can't get over it. It's something that you don't really think about your sister dying, is it? Spoke to that, Becky.
What does?
That, This is my 15-year-old sister, Becky. She's been diagnosed with osteosarcoma, which is bone cancer. Put it on perfect and all, don't you?
Shut up, you geek.
Geek. We don't know how long she's got left to live. Smile for the camera. Becky's got a 2-year-old daughter, Courtney.
Mummy. Courtney. Love you.
My name is Vicky Williamson and I'm 20 years old.
Ta.
We wanted to make a film together to celebrate Becky's life, and so when Courtney grows up, she will be able to remember her mum.
Vicky's trying to move the mattress out of the bedroom. Oh!
Oh! Oh, Percy! Look at me.
Right, we're going now. We'll get back to you when it's finished.
The way we did that was not only obviously to use the video diaries, but I had a long chat with the director, cameraman, who was brilliant, a really great job on it. What we decided to do was to only use footage that he'd shot that was not obviously shot by a cameraman director. We tried to take the cameraman and director out of the film, really. So it became almost, although clearly it wasn't all video diary, to try and make it look as much as possible as the whole film had been shot in that way. And so we did things like we didn't use great pans and moving shots that the cameraman had done. We only used moves and shots that were slightly wobbly or, you know, complete opposite of what you'd normally do when you're editing a film. And the restructuring of the film, I think it worked really well, and I was very proud of it. And it's just, it's probably one of the examples in my career of a film that's ended up completely differently from the way that everyone thought it would, even up to the end of the first rough cut. So that's why I've put it into this session here.
How easy was it to, did everyone go along with that same feeling that, I mean, I suppose there's an argument that dying at 15 of cancer is pretty miserable, so isn't it honest to just make a miserable film about it?
Well, you know, we had discussions not only with the crew and the executive producers, commissioning editors, but also the director talked to the sister, and we thought it was important to get her on board, and she was very much of the opinion also that they didn't want, you know, they wanted something for Courtney, the family did, to show her mum years to come, and clearly they didn't want to show a miserable, you know, completely unremittingly miserable film. And that wasn't a reflection of Becky herself. And there's lots of, you saw the little scene where they're redecorating the bedroom. There's lots of scenes like that where, you know, you could almost say that Becky wouldn't have wanted a film of her mum and everybody completely distraught throughout the whole film. So no, I think it was completely justified to do it in that way. Yeah.
And how much do you think, with a film like that, it's particularly difficult because, you know, it's very emotional and difficult for the family. When you're cutting it, how much are you cutting it for just absolutely what's the best film to go, and how much are you cutting it aware that this is supposed to be the memory of the mother for this kid? You know, how much are you affected by that doing it? And how much you have to be quite tough and say, well, you know.
Well, you do have to, you know, once we come up with a concept, I think it's really important to stick to that through the editing. So once we decided it was to be cut in that way, and it really helped to have the knowledge in your head that the sister was fully on board with doing it that way. In fact, as you see, she does the narration of the finished film as well. So, yeah, I mean, inevitably with a film like that, it's very difficult not to you know, feel personally involved, because you've watched all the rushes. You've seen the whole family go through the 36-hour period before Becky died. And, yeah, you do get very involved in it. Yeah.
What did they think about it?
The family? They're absolutely delighted with it. I mean, it was quite nice, actually, because the parents, Becky's parents, had actually split up. And in some way, you know, the sister told us that the relationship between her parents improved after they'd seen the film. And there was far less controversy between them.
First time I've ever heard Ed just sort of marriage guidance counsellors, but there we go. An interesting thing there again to talk about and to think about is that it was, at the start I was saying that there's a slightly different way of making films that are self-shot, and it changes the material you get. And obviously, yours, to choose the slightly more wobbly material was a deliberate thing for that. But how much do you chuck stuff out that's got sort of good content, but it's just not well enough shot to use? What's the line for you on that?
There isn't one. I'm always totally content over
style.
Yeah,
always.
Content. I mean, the biggest problem for me with self-shot rushes is not the pictures, it's sound. Because you can always cut around the pictures, but if the sound's impossible to hear or badly, you know, distorted, that's what gives you more problems than pictures.
Fine. Should we have a look at Katie?
Yeah. Well, actually, it's interesting coming from having seen that clip, because my experience with the Katie, My Beautiful Face, was very similar in the sense that I got really involved. My director, Jessie, had been filming with her. She was a 22-year-old model that had an acid attack. She had acid thrown in her face, and that changed her life in 24 hours. And she became a recluse, moved back to her family home, and did not want to leave her doorstep. And Jessie made a film with her, filming at home. And I remember very specifically at the beginning of the edit, once we started looking at material, that we were going to have to look at every bit of rushes, because what was going to make the film different, perhaps, was to not have big scenes, but little tiny scenes that would tell you what her life was like, how it had been transformed, so that you would understand what she'd been through. And it's difficult because you have to look at all this material, and you kind of not know how things are going to stick up, because I think, as editors, you never really know how a documentary is going to end, and you then need to just not believe in shortcuts. You need to look at your material and put it together in some sort of, and remember it, you know? And with this one, I remember saying to her, if people say that this is a well-edited film by the end, then we've made a mistake. The cuts have to be deliberately ugly, and we have to just make sure that we can, you know, find room for little scenes that don't necessarily move the narrative forward, but give you layers.
How important are those things, the ones that are just a bit of space in the film that aren't the narrative that, you know, as a director, you quite often know coming in knowing you've got some good bits and you think how they go together, but they so often turn out not to be the really good bits in the film or the important bits. It's that odd bit of space or finding a very small thing that you can turn into a sequence that ends up being the thing that everyone remembers.
I think it's key, really, to be honest, because normally, you know, those are the subtle things that will give you that extra bit that will make the penny drop to
texture,
your audience.
Isn't it?
Texture.
It's always texture.
Texture,
Texture and a bit of context. Always really important. Yeah.
We've got, I don't know if anyone, we can wait till the end for questions, but it may be people want to ask some questions about these clips, or they want to ask very practical questions to these guys. We were talking a bit about the assistant scheme and starting out as an editor, so I don't know if we can keep showing clips and talking about their films and going through, but I wonder if anyone got anything to ask about any of the clips they'd seen or anything to say before we move on, actually. and before they're all forgotten and we can't remember what we said.
Wait for the mic.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, sorry, my name's Will. I have a question just about the film about Courtney. How long ago was that shot, and what was Courtney's reaction to it in the end when she did watch it?
That was probably, oh God, you asked me now, 5 or 6 years ago that was made. So Courtney's still only 7 or 8, or 9. So I'm actually, like yourself, interested. I don't know whether she's been shown that film yet. I know that the original plan was that she wouldn't be shown it until she was old enough to understand the whole situation. But like yourself, I'd be very interested to know what Courtney's reaction is when it comes. Maybe there's another film in that.
Oh, no. Go on.
Hello?
Did you want to ask a question?
There's a young lady here.
Oh.
I just wanted to ask, when you're in the edit, do you often ask the director to go out and shoot something else, or like do you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of, especially now with the way schedules are, and you know, if you're doing something that's observational and being observed, the narrative doesn't end when the last day of filming is before we come into the edit. A lot of times things carry on shooting. In fact, there's some clips we've got coming up that
almost every film. There's something
it has to be
extra
open.
for that they go back
Has
and
to
shoot.
be open. I mean, I've never met a director yet that's nailed it by the time they come into the cutting room, because they always go,
It's
"Oh
impossible,
Christ, that
yeah.
didn't work," or you know. And actually, the film will always be better if you can leave things open-ended, and you should be open to that. You know,
There is a big advantage now with the self-shooting director cameramen that is easy to do. They can just go off on their own and grab the little bits that you're asking for. You know, you don't have to organise a crew, etc., etc.
Easy for you.
It can get a bit intense. It can get a bit intense.
You have to be careful with it. I mean, and you have to be careful that you don't keep filming. But actually, sometimes if you film after you start the edit, you can be really focused on what you're going to ask your contributors, and therefore, you know, it fits the project even better, or the film even better.
The film can only get better by doing that often. You know.
Yeah, often.
Yeah. I'd just like to say here as a director that they don't have to leave the room and go back and see the people. And then in the films I've done, it's always the bit I dread most when I walk in and Steve or Rupert says, "You're going to have to go back and get them." And you say, "Oh,
sometimes
no,
it's
really?"
a technique to get the director out of the cutting room to be able to just send them off to film.
That's a good excuse. Yeah. Can you go and do me a pickup?
But sometimes it's not pickups though. So I mean, you know, I did a film with the gardener called Crucifixion with Gunther von Hagens, and that was. And they were shooting right the way up until, you know, almost the last week or so of the edit, and that was difficult because it was, you know, that was scheduled that way because Gunther could only work in that way, and you know, but again that was typical to it's similar to Courtney with Love. So we chopped it rough because he was another man that was used to presenting, and so we wanted to sort of deconstruct that a bit. And so we deliberately cut that rough. But also, it worked as well, you know, when you haven't got much time at the end, you know, you need to just nail the story and get it down.
Do you feel that you work better if, say if you're doing a very long-term project, maybe cutting as you go along? Or is that, I don't know, does that work for some people and not others? Or
Cutting as you go along.
Like, it's very rare in documentary when you get the opportunity to do that.
Yeah. I mean, we what do we have? We have like 7 weeks for a 60.
6 weeks,
if you're lucky, yeah. I mean, usually it starts at 6 and then ends at 7. You know, but that's and so you'll only hope that there'll be one scene, 2 scenes that will come in during the edit. But they'll be the scenes that often help you. They'll be the keystone sequences that make you go, all right, okay, that's the context. The context of the film reveals itself in those scenes because you know what it is then. You know what you're looking for.
Yeah, on the Courtney film, if the sister hadn't been very compelling, what would you have done, actually?
That's a very good question, actually. I don't, you know, I think the decision was made because of the way she was, you know, obviously that's played a big part. Like I said, some of my favourite rushes were these video diaries, and that's, I think, because of the way she was very compelling. She was the type of person she was. That's what led us almost into making that decision as to how the film was cut. Quite what we'd have done if she'd been, you know, not good. I don't know the answer to that. Sorry.
Yeah.
Luckily, we didn't have to go down that route, yet another route that we would have had to go down.
I mean, as editors, we work with what we're given, and if you can see an opportunity in the rushes, even if it's not being exploited at the time, it's up to us to say, this is the trick, this is the thing that will hold it together. And that's part of filmmaking. You should be open to all of these things, all the way up until, you know, sometimes commissioners come in, they have amazing ideas, but it's sort of like, you know, you're in week 5, you're knackered, and you're thinking, that's really good, actually, we should try and do something with that, you know. And so you should always try and be open to those suggestions, and, you know, if you can be. I'm trying to be, you know.
I wanted to ask, where's the limit between the editor and the director, and where do you say, like, no, this won't cut, or no, this won't work, and is there any situation where the director has to be obliged to the editor?
I think it's really important that, I think the worst thing you can do as an editor is just to say, no, that won't work.
Yeah, that's
without trying anything, you know, without talking it through. And I have had directors who told me that they've had that experience in the past. And that's something I would completely avoid. And when you say where's the limit, are you talking about who makes the final decision, or?
Yeah, it's not only the final decision, but also like the editor's work is so much connected with the director's work as the vision of the film. Where's the film going? So where does each one has his limit on stopping off? Okay, that's the director's place. That's the editor's.
Where's the responsibility lie?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it depends on director to director. I mean, I've worked with people that would just leave me to it and then come in at the end and then give really helpful comments at the end, and we make tiny changes. I've worked with other people that want to do it all. In fact, they'd much rather just sit on my lap and use the Avid. But both of those scenarios are fine. You know, we as an editor, we're the guardian of the film ultimately, and so whatever's best for the film. If our director goes off on one and it's at the detriment of the film, or they've not had enough sleep, or they've made quite a crazy decision, or they need to get away from the film for a bit and give it space because they're going down a cul-de-sac, it's our responsibility to send them down the pub or send them home, because it's not going to do the film any good. You know, so that's what, you know, that's where the line is really. I mean, you know, it's a collaborative effort.
And ultimately, really, as an editor, you have to try to get the best of your director, and that will come out of the relationship. You have to instinctively know, if like Rupert was saying, if you have a director that is very hands-on, well then you have to tactically let that director be hands-on. And if you have one that actually leaves you to your own, and the best time is when he or she comes afterwards, then, you know, and you instinctively, the more you do it, the more you learn what's going to work for each director.
They're a source. It's like anything. We work with sources. You have music, you have commentary, you have pictures, sound. The director's ideas, commissioner's ideas, and exec's ideas, they're all sources, and it's up to us to filter them and make use of them. And that's what we're there to do. And so that's why it's wrong for us to say, no, impossible. You know, no, I'm not doing that. It's just, it's bad. It's lazy.
And mean as well.
Yeah, it is.
The director is the one who's
their
dealing
film,
with the
continuity. You know, we're just
film.
here to try and make it.
I do feel it's quite a lost opportunity sometimes if you get a director who just wants to sit next to you for the entire 6 or 7 weeks of the edit, what, you know, and dictate basically what they want in the film, because, you know, that's your job. You're a second pair of eyes. You're the first viewer of their rushes. And if they don't give you a chance to say what you think this film's about, what you think's good in this film, then they might as well have just employed someone to press the buttons for them, like as Rupert was saying.
Button monkey. Is it a knob jockey, isn't it? That's the term.
It's a good one. We can ask some more questions later, but it's a sort of good point to move on to some other clips, actually, because just for the record, actually, when I worked with Steve a lot, he used to pay to have Sky Sports to give me something to do during the day, so I didn't suggest things in his very collaborative way. But I think a bigger point that that the story you come with, the story of making the film and shooting it and dealing with institutions and people and you know, that you've got, changes very much when you come into the edit and you're looking for what the story of the film will be. And I think in the next couple of clips that happened quite a lot, to talk about, you go off expecting the film to be about one thing and it ends up about something else, or you expect the film to have a certain tone and it ends up about something else. And so should we show a few of those and move on and then have some questions in a bit?
Yeah.
I think we've got, I think it's
Tony.
Tony.
Yeah. So the next clip is from, oh, hang on a minute, don't play it yet, stop it. Rewind. Editing, it's all about timing. All about timing. So the next clip's from Tony Robinson, Me and My Mum, which is something I did a few years ago now. And this was quite interesting. This was before we had Who Do You Think You Are, or any of those things. Stephen Fry did one about depression. And so we hadn't, the grammar of kind of celebrities kind of saying, you know, really revealing themselves in an open way, and it hadn't really been established. And Tony Robinson was, you know, is well known for Time Team and Baldrick in Blackadder, and is quite a canny fellow. And at the beginning of this, wanted just to do a straightforward polemic about old people in care, because he's sort of, you know, he wrote an article in, I think, the Telegraph, and about the way we treat old people, and felt terrible about it. And obviously he had his own mother in an old people's home, and initially didn't want to talk about the guilt of that, found that difficult. He didn't want it to be about him, basically. He wanted it to be about the subject. So that's where we started with him, and we only had 6 days to film with him, to film the entire thing with him. And he said to the director, I'm allowed to say this, I spoke to Mr. Dehaney this morning, he said it's fine to say. He said, Tony said to him, you're not going to get me on this, you know, being a bit wily about it. And Dave, you know, sort of, fair enough, you know, we'll see where we end up. And so this first clip is from, I think, the second day of filming. And the idea behind it was that Tony was going to be witness to different old people in different situations. And so, yeah, this is about, so clip one is from a cut from the second day of filming, and he's seeing an old man who's in a hospital, and who's about to be moved to an old people's home, and he's meeting him and his daughter, who's made that decision.
Every day, the family visit John in hospital.
Where are you, Dad?
No.
Where about? You don't know where you are?
Don't, blank.
Blank. You're in the hospital, aren't you?
What?
In the hospital. Don't you remember?
No, I'm in the hospital then.
No, oh, come on, Dad, no crying. It's Smile Day today.
Well, what do you mean?
No.
I'm in the hospital.
No, remember when
I've done nothing every time in hospital.
Yeah.
Who's the gentleman here?
He's a friend. He's Tony.
I'm Tony.
Well, what do you do?
What's my job?
Yeah.
I make television programmes.
Yeah.
I'm on the telly.
Are you really?
Yeah. Yeah.
You've got a few quid, but don't you?
I've got a few quid,
yeah. You're all right, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to get you into the convalescent home.
Yeah, but it's going to take a time.
No, it won't be long, Dad. Won't be long.
You called it a convalescent home?
Yes, because Anne started to call it that. Yeah. Because if we said a nursing home, he might think he's ill. He accepted a convalescent home.
I found I got very confused in my own mind about that. I felt I surrounded my mum with those small, convenient lies.
We have.
And
yeah,
it's only to make her feel better. But
exactly
I was not being honest with her.
No. And we say to him, "You're going to get better, Dad." Of course, you're going to get better. You're better now.
Yeah.
But he's not. He's not. But what can you say to him? No, Dad, you're never going to get better.
It seems so ruthless, doesn't it? To say you're not going to get better. You're never going to come home. Yeah. You're going to be in an old people's home for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And you'll probably be quite unhappy for the first couple of years.
So do these lies really matter?
I don't know.
I don't think so. I don't think they do.
Are you a homeowner looking for a low-cost loan?
When it wasn't long after he'd first been in, he wanted my sister to finish me off. I don't want to be here. And she said, what do you want me to do, Dad? Put a pillow over your head? And he said yes. But she said, if I do that, Dad, I'm going to end up in prison.
Yeah.
And he said, I don't care. Then he wanted me to bring in tablets. And I said, I can't do that, Dad. I can't give you tablets.
So what Tony was faced with by meeting these people was that he was forced to sort of slightly begin to confront his own issues with his own parents, and he was okay sort of initially talking about it in kind of, you know, sort of throwing it away in questions to get them to talk about stuff. Now, talking about filming while we're still going, the final 2 days of the film were held back till the edit. So we shot this next sequence when we were about 3 weeks into the edit, and Dave was sort of very keen to try and get him to open up because he wasn't really being honest about his situation with his mother. Didn't really want to talk about it, and so Dave wanted to put him into a situation where he was shown that someone who'd given all of their life to their parent, because Tony had put his mother into an old people's home and didn't want to talk about the guilt of that, particularly about his own personal guilt. And so he then got taken to go and see Rosa, and so this was day 5, I think, of shooting. If you want to roll clip 2, please.
I was really shocked to see how calm Rosa's mum was. I remember how agitated my dad got when he had Alzheimer's. I can only put this difference down to the care that Rosa was giving her.
You have to learn a number of tricks if you are looking after an old person with Alzheimer. One of it is that you have to give them something to play with. So she can now play with grembule, which is the apron. And that keeps her busy while you can do something else, like speaking to you for now.
What do you think's going on in her head?
She's quite peaceful.
She doesn't get agitated?
Only if I get agitated.
Ah, that's interesting. Sometimes I go into the old people's home, and my mum is like this. She's clenched up like this, and she's making this awful, mad noise. It's like, and it's such hostility and such anger and such frustration. It just goes on and on and on. And then as soon as she sees me, she just stops, and it's just like, oh, hello.
Really? Yes.
And yet it's real, that other stuff. It's not that she's pretending so that she can suddenly go,
yes.
Oh, I'm going to be a smiley person
Yes.
now. It's like her environment changes when I come because she loves me.
Yeah. And I think it must be wonderful for you to witness that your presence can do that.
Except that I'm so distressed to see her like that.
Yes.
I go into kind of play acting mode. Oh, Mum, great to see you.
Yes.
You know.
Yes. I was wondering if I can be as bold as this. Part of me wanting to meet you was to try to find out how you are dealing with the difficulty of putting your mother into a care home.
I want to work out clearly in my mind how I feel about my relationship with my mum and how I feel about the relationships that we all have with our mums. Because it's something we don't talk about. We've got to handle them perfectly.
Yes.
If we don't handle them perfectly, we're bad and wrong
Yes.
and ought to be consigned straight to hell.
Yeah.
And actually, it's just like anything else in life, isn't it? We cock up all the time, we get mad, we make the wrong decisions.
Yes, because we often blame our parents and say, well, you did this to me and you should have done this. But they were human, or they are human, just like us. And being forced to confront them as a human being rather than these perfect parents that you don't know how to handle.
Yeah.
So I think that's perhaps is a key to forging then a new kind of relationship.
This was an amazing experience that I wasn't expecting. Here's an intelligent woman, she's given up everything to look after her mum, and she's actually enjoying it.
Well, thank you for coming.
Bye bye, Mama.
Mamma se ne sta andando, saluta mamma.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming.
I'm a bit confused. I suppose when you're making a documentary, you have some preconceptions about what you're going to get out of an interview. And I thought that there would be this woman who was trapped in her flat in Highbury with a mother with Alzheimer's. She never goes out. It's all kind of, it's all really gloomy and horrible. And I found this very wise, almost saintly woman who quite genuinely seems to get a huge amount out of looking for her mother. It's not the film I thought I was making.
Yeah, it isn't, is it? Do you think it's becoming about love? Love for your parents?
Yeah, it is.
So Tony didn't know anything about Rosa, and that was the sort of Dave decided to keep that from him. Obviously, it's a consummate professional, Tony, and likes to know in advance everywhere where he goes, and so he wasn't told anything about Rosa. Only as they were going up the stairs, Dave said she lives in a one-bedroom flat. She sleeps with her mother. Her mother has Alzheimer's, and she's given up everything for her. Her name is Rosa, and that was it. And so he had to react in the most human way with her, and. He took a real turn after that because he suddenly realised that actually it was more about this. He was much more open. And so in terms of editing, it created a sort of different energy for us. So we had to kind of work backwards, back through the rushes, and we had to write him, basically. So the journey kind of made sense. And so a lot of the kind of sense that's being made is being done in the writing, which we knew ultimately he would have to read, and so he'd have to be all right with. But it was the first screening with him was quite exciting because he said explicitly, I think to Dave, I don't want to talk about my personal guilt. I'm not going to say it. And the first line, which I then had to read, I read, the comment was, I'm really guilty about putting my mum into a care home. And so we sat there like that going, all right, let's that. And we watched it and watched the whole film through. And anyone that's seen the film will realise that after that, we actually filmed with his mother while she died. He got a call. We were actually going to a different location, and he got a call from the care home to say, your mother's passing away, and Dave went with him to the care home, and we filmed with her last moments. And that's the end of the film, basically. And so he's recently bereaved, having a screening of himself saying something that we're not entirely sure whether he'll be comfortable with. But he completely got what the point was of it, and he had to be honest, real, because that only in that way that could he be was there a dignity to any of it. He had to be as honest as everyone that was taking part, and he saw that in reflection. But during the process, he found that very difficult, and so we had to sort of do that a bit in the edit. And it was quite interesting in terms of screenings as well. We had another screening with Bupa, and we were sort of kicking crap out of Bupa, basically, in it, saying these care homes are rubbish, aren't they? Look, it's really horrible. And we had to have a screening with them as well, which was kind of like we had the head of PR, and one of the nurses came in to see it. And I've never been in a screening where someone said in the first 10 minutes, we're fucked, as they're watching it, like that, going, what the fuck are we going to do?
Yeah, I have.
But by the end of it, they sort of said, how can we, they sort of turned it around in their own mind, saying, well, can we buy time when it goes out? Because we should be proactively leading on this, and they kind of got it as well. But yeah, so, I mean, in terms of managing a story through the edit, that was quite an interesting process to go through.
I think it's also an interesting thing to say that, Tony Robinson not wanting to play ball, I mean, that's just like every film, isn't it? It never goes the way you want it as a director. No one ever really does what you want them to do, and you always miss things, and you always feel a bit worried and miserable. And I suppose one of the things I find in the cutting room with a good editor is it's amazing what little bits you've got or what moments that change it can be turned into the heart of a film that you'd sort of slightly given up on because nothing you planned went to plan, to be honest.
Yeah. That's the point, isn't it? About creating, about being able to create something in the edit. I think in Tony's defence, he did go with it, But he was fear, you know, it's completely understandable. I mean, you lay yourself open in that way, you know, his mum's very frail, is, you know, on her last legs, and it's a very complicated situation. There's a lot of trust in there. And as there is in all documentaries, it's all about trust and about, you know, working with people. And occasionally in the edit, we have to make decisions that are hard, and you need to give, sometimes you need to give things an edge in order for them to reveal the truth. And you do have to be brave in that. You know, and certainly when you're going through the process of making a film, you need to do that. I certainly, there's Mark Henderson up there, and I cut a film with him called My Kidnapper. And Mark and I are friends, and we had lots of falling out during that, because again, it was the same sort of thing. You know, he started with one thing in his head, and it became something else. But you know, Mark was you having to write. You didn't want to write any commentary, did you? You didn't want to talk in it. But it was the only way which we can properly reflect the story was to do that. I think you called me a cunt in that as well, didn't you? Yeah, I still love you. But it was good. I mean, the film was good. We got there in the end, you know. Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah, just picking up really on what was being said there about small parts of stories that develop into bigger parts, really, in the cutting room. I remember doing a film with John, actually. John was the director, called Dying to Live, and another cheery one, I'm afraid. The premise was that it was about a family. The mother was dying of cancer, basically, had a matter of days, they thought, at that point. And her son had been diagnosed with leukemia, and the premise of the film was, you know, will mum live long enough to see her son, hopefully, on the road to recovery? And you might think that's enough for a story, really, but watching the rushes, the dad became clear that he was going to be, for me, a fairly integral part of the story, because, you know, he's got it going from both sides. He's a sort of pragmatic, sort of fairly stiff upper lip kind of English type. And I loved him, basically, from the minute I saw him in the rushes. And so John and I sort of worked together, and we kind of hinged the film a little bit, really, around him. Yeah. And some of my favourite scenes with the dad, I'd just like to show you one.
They were, this day we went, I mean, Sandy, the mum, had a few weeks. Andy was back from hospital. He'd been given his first bit of treatment. He had no white blood cells, very vulnerable to infection, but he was having a few days at home, then he'd go back into hospital. Mum was supposed to have a few weeks, and then they just got a phone call where they said, actually, tests are very bad, and we think it could be 48 hours, you know, we just don't know what's going to happen. And they all started crying, and we were there filming, and that's when this bit happened. But just with Steve, I mean, I went into it thinking, well, she's definitely dying, he's probably dying, probably going to be about one of those two, isn't it? And was wrong.
So just this clip, it's just an example of how a quiet man, and I've always liked quiet men and what you can do with them in films, especially as an editor. So this is how he's rationalising his situation, basically, his wife's illness, etc., whilst he's making a bacon sandwich. So can we show the clip?
You can make me a bacon butty though, don't you?
A bacon butty?
Yeah.
Brown sauce or red sauce?
Brown sauce.
Seeing as you love cooking so much, Stuff.
Yeah.
All right then.
Do make sure your hands are absolutely scrub, won't you?
Yes, dear. I'll stick them in boiling chip fat. That'll sterilise them. Of course, I'll wash my hands. I remember a long time ago we had an old dog, Jake. She's buried in the garden, but I remember we kept her alive for about another week or two, long after we should have done, really. We did have the bloke coming needler dripping to try and to terminate her, and we couldn't actually bring ourselves to do it because on that day she seemed to be a bit brighter, so we took her in and did various things to try and help her go forwards and live a bit longer, which succeeded, but ultimately she then died. But she died and we had to put her down in the in the actual surgery of the vet's practice, and that last 2 or 3 days that she spent in there were very uncomfortable, stuck in a lonely cage, and we weren't around. And the reason I realised at the end that we did it was to make myself feel better, so that I'd done everything I possibly could for the benefit of the dog. And that made me feel good, when in reality what I did was put the dog through something it really didn't want to go through, because you don't like facing up to the fact that something awful is going to happen. But you know that that's what's going to happen, and don't dwell on it for too long, but make sure that you dwell on it long enough to understand that it is happening. Don't pretend to yourself that it isn't, because it flipping well is. Anyway, bacon butty time. How to get a clean, a new bottle of sauce, just to be absolutely certain that we're not putting any germs in from our unhygienic bottles of sauces. Yum, yum.
I'm very glad that hygienically he slapped it down with his hand after worrying about the sauce bottle. I just, you know, if you've ever, any of you have seen the whole film, it's to me, it's that amazing way that only those kind of men can rationalise what was a terrible situation he was in by reflecting on how he dealt with the death of a dog and worried that he'd only treated the dog for his own benefit, really, in the end. And that kind of thing is what I love in filmmaking, that you can bring that into a film that probably, when it was shot, John would obviously realise it was a good interview, but may or may not have realised how it was going to affect the way the whole film was cut.
Not a clue. And I think that and I think that's the sort of opposition between the editor and the director. I think when you're doing things, as a director, you have in your mind this sort of the questions you're going to ask and the answers people will give you, and the answers will be great and they'll be what you wanted, and people will do the things you want, and things will play out of you in front of you in just the way you want. And actually, I mean, Steve does love an emotionally inarticulate man, it has to be said, in his films. But I think there's a sort of bigger point about it as well, that actually often it is the unspoken things and the awkward bits and the stuff that's not quite shot right that gets something that again and again you see that editors like and that they use, because it's true and it's honest, and it's just the same as when you've interviewed someone and you've made them do it 8 times till they finally say all the right words. The editor always bins it because it doesn't sound right, it doesn't sound sincere and true. And Alan's struggling to talk about his wife, Sandy. I mean, they didn't even get on very well, you know, and talking about the dogs instead was... But at the time, I didn't really see it. I was just sort of thinking, oh, talk about your wife, for goodness sake, you know, and just filming. But, you know, I was wrong about it, but there you are. I don't know if anyone's got any questions about these bits. We've got a couple more clips to come. We can have questions then, but I don't know if we've got... Well, do you want to go and show the next one?
Show my next clip. Because actually it's a bit of a departure of one we've been talking about. The next clip is really once you sort of hand it over a very thin story, but you need to make it work, and everything that could possibly go wrong went wrong. Everything that you can imagine that had gone wrong. We had taken a break from the edit, and then that's when the post-mortem took place, so there was no one to film the post-mortem. We then came back and thought, well, maybe we can ask the coroner to have a debrief with the pathologist. But the coroner was now away on holiday, so her deputy did not want to be filmed while the pathologist was going to debrief her. So we were stuck. So we had to shot that poor man stuck with a woman listening to him, but we couldn't film the woman. So you just had to single shot there. We needed access to the postmortems, because by this stage, this was episode 3 of a series called Death Unexplained about the London West coroner. And by then, we had put all our best staffs in episodes 1 and 2. So we were just filling the gaps, really, for episode 3. We had to make it work and make it interesting. And also, this was a series for BBC One, which have a particular way of being cut. The script is very heavy, and you need to write it quickly, and it's a particular kind of program. And you had to cut it quicker. It's more jumpy, and we had all these. The mad Polish woman talking on her by herself. We had and you just had to kind of make it glue into one scene, and you have to play the smoke and mirrors. So the way you write the script, how you position the script, what shot you decide to place the script on, and those are things that really, if you have a good understanding of what you're doing and crafting it, can happen at a very late stage in the edit, I think.
Yeah, sometimes script's vital. I mean,
Yeah,
you know, you can't.
totally. Yeah,
I think we have
don't be a purist about it.
Yeah,
really.
we get very upset about having to write comma. I think generally, sort of, oh God, not more writing. But I think if you sort of, sometimes you have to embrace it, and I think if you do, at least try and do it well.
Yeah,
then
exactly.
you sort of you get away with it, I think.
And then, yeah, I mean, and what we were talking before, we send the director to do all those fancy shots in the lab that don't mean anything. There's just like things moving around, you know. You cut them to funky music, you know, and then you do some shots of a Polish shop in West London. We're very close to my flat, so I remember them. And we went and filmed in one morning, you know. So I was there, and we then did some exterior shots of the Polish embassy, right next to Soho, or Regent Street, and you know, jump a cab, filmed it, and went back and cut it in, you know.
The art of the film editor.
Absolutely. There you go.
I held yeah. I carried the equipment that day.
Have we got one more clip? Have we got?
do. Yes. Do you want to?
Yeah, let's show that to Cherry. Yeah.
What do you want to ask?
No, I want to show it. And then
You
we'll
want to
ask
show
the
it?
questions.
Okay.
I love this clip.
Okay, this is a clip from going back to how we started this session, really, talking about assistance and the value of assistance. And this is a film from quite some time ago, quite early in my career, well, the mid-term of my career, maybe. This is a film called Sex, Lies and Aliens, which had been directed by Norman Hull. And I didn't do the first cut of this. I was called in to do a recut. And we looked at it, and we sort of identified the problem was really trying a bit too hard to be funny, and as a result wasn't working. And one of the main problems we found was that the newspaper staff were being portrayed to being sort of in on the joke, and that was really playing against the strength of the film. So we sort of decided we needed recutting on the basis that, we'd recut it as if it wasn't the sports newspaper that we were dealing with. It was, the Times or the Guardian. It was a serious newspaper, and we decided that we'd treat it in virtually the same way as that. So it was recut over 7 days and nights, basically. I was working on another film, and luckily I had an extremely good assistant at the time. I think, is he here? Yeah. Who turned into Ben Brown eventually, who's now one of the top boys in documentary editing. So I've heard recently specialises now only in pre-titles and sizzles, are they called? Sizzles?
Yeah, nothing more than
Swizzles?
3 minutes.
Yeah,
Nothing more than 3 minutes.
In fact, I heard that he got a job on a Storyville the other day, but the production company were extremely worried when his first rough cut turned out to be 4.5 minutes long. But anyway, moving on. So Ben was working days on this film whilst I was working on another film, and I was working nights, and we recut the film, like I said, in a week, and it's become known as a bit of a classic of Norman's. So should we have a clip from Sex, Lies and Aliens?
The splash is obviously going to be direct, straightforward. Movie star has sex with a chicken, but
That's
inside
what
we've
it's
got to
about.
take it on. You can't run with something that's the same inside.
Nice breast shame about the giblets or something like that.
Yeah, clucking. Movie star fouls up.
Yeah, fouls up, yeah.
Which came first,
Yeah.
the chicken or the movie star?
Yeah.
Something to do with clucking, stuffing. There's plenty of play on words we can go with. Come on, onwards and upwards. Hello, hi Nicola, right?
Good morning, Storytellers.
Okay, 5 minutes. All right, cheers. Right, next one. Film star has sex with chicken.
Love it.
Who's the film star?
Don't know yet. This
Right.
is it's the talk of Tinseltown.
Next one.
The Bionic Willy.
All right, good. Have we got any pictures?
We will have.
Is this the world's biggest nipple?
Is this the world's biggest nipple?
Right, thanks folks. Off we go. I like to think that I'm carrying on the traditions of Shakespeare.
Shakespeare didn't write his plays for Ponzi students and swats to examine over the years. He wrote them for the ordinary people of his generation. They could even take their animals in to watch if they wanted, and I'm carrying on his work now. I'm producing something for the ordinary rank and file British person, because I'm one, I know what they want, that's what we do.
The next one is a fantastic story. Have they got the fish finger?
Hi.
Sarah Stevens from the Sport. Hello, this is
Hi,
Paul
Jane.
Carson.
Paul Curry from Sport.
Right, come in. Thanks. Thanks for seeing us, Jane. I know it can't be easy. I think the easiest way we can do this is for you to just tell us what happened. It was a couple of weeks ago, wasn't it, when your son Lyndon went missing?
Yeah.
What happened?
I heard mummy in the night, 3 o'clock in the morning, say, and woke up to this bright light, come downstairs because I was following the sound.
Coming from?
The garden.
Right, through the bedroom window?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come down the stairs and followed the light into the garden, and Lyndon was stood there looking up to this big, ginormous object in my garden.
Can you describe the object?
It's a big, like a spaceship thing. And he was looking up to it. I've gone to approach my son Lyndon when a gust of smoke's come.
Where did smoke come from? From the bottom
From
of
the
the
bottom
spacecraft?
of the spacecraft, yeah. I was frightened to approach him because I was frightened as well. And I've gone to get him. This gust of smoke's come. And Lyndon just disappeared. And all I was left with was a fish finger.
It's been a strange experience.
Yeah, it felt weird just putting the fish finger into the freezer because it was on its own, and that could be my son.
I don't want to upset you anymore, but is there any chance we can have a look at Lyndon?
Yeah.
Be careful with him. Obviously, Paul will need to get a picture of Lyndon.
Yeah.
If that's okay.
Yeah.
You okay? Do you want to carry on with this?
Yeah.
Are you sure? I know this is a difficult question, but what made you think that the fish finger might be your son Lyndon?
Well, Lyndon used to act playing dead, and he used to go stiff, and the fish finger was stiff.
Right. But apart from that, obviously, there's no other family resemblance.
No, not at all, no. What reminds me of Lyndon, that's his favourite cushion, so I did put it on the cushion.
Oh, that's nice, yeah. I'm sure he appreciates it.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yes. That was quite an experience anyway. So after 7 days and nights of editing, we got Peter Moore in, the lovely Peter Moore, who's the commissioning editor, to watch the recut. And he watched it, and he got up at the end and he just said, "Norman, I just feel like I've spent an hour in an abattoir." And he walked out. But he did come back in, and he just asked us to take a few tits out, and then it would be fine. Actually, we got away quite lightly, because I did hear from another editor friend of mine how a viewing ended with Peter Moore standing up, looking around the room, and just saying, "Yes, I suggest you all just go home and get on with the rest of your lives." And then he walked out. So we got off quite lightly.
That's the last of our clips. I don't know if anyone has any questions. I think we're going to talk a little bit more about the editor's scheme for a couple of minutes, but if there's any more questions or anything, then now's the time.
I'm wondering if most of the clips that you've shown are from television, and I'm wondering if you've ever edited a film that would be part of a festival or part of a theatrical release, and if you think that the process is different?
Yeah, I edited a film called Erasing David a couple of years ago, which was for theatrical release. And to be honest, apart from the fact that it was longer, and you could sort of be more, I don't know, languid really in the editing at points, and it's things that you just wouldn't get away with on television, basically. Work in the cinema, because of the size of the picture, etc. You know it's going to be up there, and you can show the beautiful landscapes, the music, and that's really. But apart from that, in terms of narrative and drive and the point of these films, I don't think it made a lot of difference, to be honest, whether it was for TV or for cinema.
Yeah, I mean, I do with Kidnapper that we did, My Kidnapper we did with Mark, that was sort of ended up in the cinemas, and the only difference was kind of the amount of people involved. So you just have a lot more money involved, a lot more sort of interested parties, and so the process takes longer because you just have to factor all these people into that, and so you just need to hold on to your marbles a bit more. I think I don't know how they cope with these like multi-million-pound films. You know, I just think that would just terrify me. You know, the idea of having to deal with all those people and all that bullshit would be madness. But no, as Steve says, the actual a story is a story, effectively. So you know, if something works on the small screen, I think there are things you can get away with on the big screen that look better. Things that feel more cinematic, and you need to have a bit more wriggle room, I think, in pacing, probably. Yeah. But that's it.
Yeah. We had one example there of a time when you were really struggling to get a story out of quite thin rushes. Yeah. I was wondering if any or all of you have ever had a situation where you've looked through the rushes and just thought, oh shit, there's nothing here at all.
Many times.
And in that situation, is it possible to make a sow's purse out of any sort of pig's ear that you get, or is there times when you just have to hold your hands up and go, sorry?
I think when there's a will, there's a way, really.
Yeah, you've always got to try. Never give up.
Never give up, really.
Do something with it.
Yeah. And there are some tricks that, you know, with experience you can come up with. You know, in terms of putting more music, cutting it quicker. There are tricks, you know.
Being cheekier with the cutting,
being cheekier, being more aggressive with the commentary, you know. Writing good commentary is part of documentary making, and I think when you're struggling to help the narrative, you then write better commentary and more aggressive and with more attitude and more of it. Yeah. That will always help. I mean, it's not. We would all like to do documentaries without commentary.
Yeah, of course.
We would.
If the story tells itself, then it's brilliant. But you know, I mean, the worst viewing experience I ever had was with an awful film. And the director, who will name names, so I won't even name the series producer had taken another job, had distributed the rushes sort of randomly without seeing what was on any of it. And we ended up with something that was there was nothing in it. I mean, it literally was dust. And the director I was working with was sort of on sort of the last time out of the batch. She'd done 2 bad films. The exec was sort of frustrated with her. And so we had the worst screen in my life. We were thinking, God, you know, we've got nothing to work with here. The director resigned during the screening. The film carried on playing. I left the viewing to go and chase after the director who was in a park crying. It was extraordinary. And she left for home. She didn't come back ever again. It was a new series producer. It was his first day on the job. And so we were sat next to each other, my first day working on that particular series, his first day working on it. We'd never worked for the exec before. And it was like, well, which one of us is going to go next, you know, because there was nothing in it. But he was an old hand, series producer, brilliant. And actually we had 2 viewings after that. We got the film through. We got the exec in to help write it with us, because the best way of doing it is just to empower all those people. People it has to go through, you empower them, bring them into the problem, then you're all solving it together. And we had screenings where the series producer would literally have his hands over the screen and say, look at the expression on there, and make jokes. He talked all the way through both screens. I don't know what was in the film that went out, but it went out and it was fine. And the viewing public watched it, but it was dust. It was absolute dust.
Yeah, it does happen. It does happen.
Yeah, it does
but it's great. You learn a lot from those experiences, you know. I think they're important to go through. You know, you don't always get it. We all aspire to make amazing, brilliant films, but, you know when as a director, you'll know what you've got if it's good. Yeah. And if it's good there, then it will be good. You know, it'll get good on the screen. But sometimes it just, for whatever you do, it just doesn't work. And you come to us and it's like, help.
Yeah, it's reminded me of actually another film I did with Norman Hull, and it was a similar situation that as you've spoken about, that really we all knew that it wasn't very good. And again, it was Peter Moore who came in and just looked at us and said, it's a complete pile of tripe, Norman. And Norman went, yeah, it is. But what we did was we took what was actually about 1/6 of the film, because it was one of those films where you're covering 6 different situations, but all along the same subject. We took 1/6 of the film and
completely reshot for 3 or 4 days around that section of film that we had, and basically just made the film out of what was previously 1/6 of the film. So,
I mean, I had a particularly, going back to the clip I showed of Katie, My Beautiful Face, had a follow-up series, which was a 4-part series, and it was very difficult. I cut it with Rupert's partner, Emma, and we both cut it together, and it was difficult because the series had gone through a lot of problems, and it had changed its sort of what it was going to turn out, and we had to kind of make a lot of decisions in the edit to try to salvage it. And things like, well, we know Katie's great, let her narrate it. Those are decisions you make in the edit, so that she can have her journey throughout each episode. And that changed, and those are things that are, when you're struggling, the light bulb will kind of somehow.
It's not easy making films, No,
and
actually,
it's never
a lot of things you have to work with are problems, and that's what we do.
It gets 3 editors together, isn't it? I think we should have another question. The answer, obviously, to that is not just yes, but almost always. It's impossible. It's rubbish. After what you've done, leave me to it.
No, when there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah.
Can I ask, you mentioned the phenomenon of when you're filming or during the rush, a little aspect of a story becoming something much bigger. Is that a phenomenon that you have ever been tempted to kind of push against or to suppress something? Or have you ever been tempted to do that? Or is it something that's very much unstoppable? You have to just let it evolve and run with it or get swept away?
Me? Yeah. Oh, I just do what the editors tell me. I think I've had difficult ones, say with Steve, arguing about characters, actually, of just, we lost a whole person from a film once that I thought was really important, and they're very helpful doing it. And he just liked a completely different person. It was a much smaller story. And he was right, actually. The person ended up not in the film at all. But we argued about it quite a lot for weeks, I seem to remember, before it came out.
I mean, it's much easier for us because we don't have a personal relationship with the contributors. And often the hardest thing you can say to a director is, that person that you've been filming with for 2-3 months, I don't think she should or he should be in the film, because that's an easy thing for me to say, very difficult for the director who has to go and explain, it's not you, it's all sorts of excuses they must have to come up with. But so we do get the sort of easy end of it from that point of view, and it's always important to remember that the director does have personal relationships with these people. They're real to them. To us, they're a person on the screen, which is what they have to be to an editor.
And I think it's important that in the early stages of the edit, that you don't discard anything. That you sort of, because you have time to work with your relationship with your director, and towards the end of the edit, you can say, well, actually, we can drop that now, because you have a different relationship with your director. And at the beginning, the word no, saying no to someone who's just come back from filming, it's not a good.
It's a killer.
It's a killer. Really. It's mean spirit.
Hello. I wanted to ask how you go about choosing what films you work on, particularly if and when you're approached by relatively new directors.
Well, obviously you have a stable of directors that you work with quite a lot, and that's the first point of call usually, but that doesn't always happen. And actually, 2 to 3 years ago, I started working with first-time directors and found it a really rewarding experience. So now it's something I do sort of every third film will be with a new director, and I really enjoy doing that.
Yeah, I think you have to, it's whatever. I mean, I always pick the films that I cut because they interest me. I'm just interested. I just finished a film about 7/7, and I remember that day, and there's something very interesting about hearing the stories. And so, I mean, it's just because I'm a nosy bugger, basically. So I just, that's how I pick. Yeah. If it touches me, then I'll do it, really. And as Steve says, you do work with directors, but you get drawn to work with the same people again and again because they like the same things that you do, really. Yeah. So it's sort of, but it is important to work with new directors, new talent. It's important.
In the 90s, there was a lot of controversy where editors were adding things in the wrong order, so it wasn't really true, stuff like that. And then it all cleaned up, didn't it, television? And then there was Queengate, where the Queen was edited to seem to be storming out of a photo shoot. What limits are there now, or has it gone a bit fuzzy again? Because
no, I had to take a BBC Trust module for doing the
Safeguarding Trust.
Safeguarding Trust. You have to do it again and again and again. Generally speaking, it's funny Queensgate because it caused us no end of problems. Because the thing was about that was just a poor judgment call. For us, when you're making documentaries, you're there to tell the truth. Yeah. And that's what we're there to do. That's the first port of call. As soon as you start going away from that, the film loses something. And so, our first port of call is the truth. And, we may find ways of doing that take a sort of interesting route to get to the truth. Yeah. But it's the truth is what we're interested in.
It's the essential truth.
The essential truth, yeah. I mean, and context. Context is everything with that. So, I think it's... there was an enormous reaction to that, and rightly so, But it's still very present.
I remember cutting a scene where somebody was on the telephone in a call centre, and the line had gone dead, and the person had been cut off because they got so fed up with the reaction they were getting on the call centre. Because it wasn't obvious, we just added a little beep ring, tone that said disconnected, and we were made to take that out after Queengate because it hadn't actually been there in the first place. It got to that level of
I mean, as long as you're telling the truth, and you still need to play out things for dramatic intensity, But you can tell the truth and do both things, Enhance the drama when you need to.
Yeah. As long as the drama you're intensifying is real,
Yeah, exactly. As long as it's real.
Yeah.
Can I just ask? You talked briefly about 24 hours in A&E.
Yep.
And I just wondered if you could just talk a little bit about the joys, the challenges, the delights, the horrors of cutting on those fixed rig shows.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as I say, we're going to take we're taking series 2 is going out at the moment of A&E, and we're going to take on series 3. They're kind of an interesting thing to do rigs because they supply a lot of kind of interesting challenges. And you have a sort of bubble to work with, and you can't sort of burst the bubble of a rig, so you have to work with something that have to make it feel like it's happening at that time. And so there is a bit of a trick to them. You can't conflate time too much, but you just there's a trick to them. They're sort of 99% perspiration, 1% inspiration, because you have to watch a load of material to get to the good stuff. But once you get there, and putting them together is very, very satisfying. But it's a big number crunching game, which is why it's perfect for assistants. It's a perfect ground to see if people have what it takes to pick out good material, basically, and to see it, because you have to watch hours and hours of the stuff.
And hours.
Yeah, and hours. Yeah.
Spend 3 weeks looking at.
Yeah, well, for A&E, and that's only 24-hour period. I mean, it's like 80 cameras or something. Although
you just spend 3 weeks looking at.
It's the sound as well, listening to everything. It's not just watching. You have to listen to all the mics and sort of, to make sure you don't miss anything.
Rewind, look again, different mic.
Yeah, it's a ball ache. But once you find the money, it's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, the intimacy the rig gives you is incredible. But it's hard work on every level. I mean, everyone from shooting all the way through to getting consents, everyone is working at unbelievable full tilt to get those films on air. They are unbelievably labour intensive, and edits for rig shows go way above and beyond any other edit. I've heard of rig shows being in the edit for 20, 30 weeks plus. They are unbelievably rigorous, but you wouldn't realise it to watch it. You say, "Oh, that looks fine, isn't it?" It's simple. Everyone would know that would be the story, but they are very, very tricky.
We're kind of out of time, actually, and just while we're talking about rigs, I just wouldn't mind coming back and just saying, for anybody who might know anyone who wants to be an editor, we're looking for 6 assistants, some with a bit of experience, some not. Anyone who's making films, talk to Rupert about the assistant scheme. It's a really good idea. It doesn't cost that much more. It works really well. Channel 4 have been brilliant. They've put some money in. They've been very much behind doing the assistant scheme. We don't even know quite how it'll work, but we think it will.
We hope it'll work. I mean, I'm sure it'll be great. We're going to put a lot of effort behind it. So, yeah.
And
all the guys are very committed to it. They've trained lots of people. They came through a process of training, and editor is incredibly important, and they're very keen to find more of them. And so I hope that I hope we find the people and more people take up the scheme actually and work with assistants. And I think we're kind of done. So thank you very much for listening to us, and thank you to Steve and Rupert and Sam. Thank you.